I am Jadon Se, Golden Dragon of the Third Arc of Consciousness, and this is a message from the Dragon. Today's message is Recovered Histories, Part 3. Dear ones, in Parts 1 and 2, we discussed a great reset upon the world, a giant mega tsunami that rearranged continents, created mountain ranges, including the Andes and many modern mountain ranges, and deposited remnants of the world before into places like the Gobi Desert and the basins of the oceans. After this reset in Part 2, we spoke about your star families coming here, returning to create a new grand experiment, creating crystal skulls as template backups for the human divine template, and beginning to work with the whales and cetaceans to create the environment for this new human experiment. Where we left off in the last Part 2 was approximately 4 million years ago, give or take. Your cetaceans in concert with other star beings, yes, dear ones, the cetaceans are star beings, and star seeds like you are. In concert and coordination with those, your Pleiadians, your Arcturians, and yes, your Lyrans, the Syrians as well, they would make periodic visits here to contribute to this grand project, and some of them were building structures and grid work, beautiful megalithic structures, many of which you've never even seen or heard of, that are buried beneath the waves, and many buried beneath piles and piles of, shall we say, soil and mud and sediments. Dear ones, there was quite the project going on from 4 million years ago onward. There was a concerted effort to set up the environmental vibrational structure of this your world, to create a harmonic of beings that were brought here. Indeed, many of your different kingdoms and classes in your biology are from different kingdoms from the stars. Yes, kingdoms and classes of these creatures. Some of them evolved some of their features here, yes, but most of them were seeded from the stars, from star beings. Your Lyrans decided to bring in the cat energies. Your Syrians decided to bring in many different beingnesses, and the Lyrans also focused on the divine human template, not to the exclusion of all else, but it was their main project, so to speak. The Syrians brought in many beings, including your wolves and dog types, jackals, and foxes, all of the different kingdoms having to do with canines, as well as many other creatures of flight, for there are avians amongst the Syrian star system. There are avians also amongst Lyra, and those beings brought forth many beautiful avian beings. Yes, dear ones, it has been said to you that the dinosaurs became the birds. Well, that is not incorrect, for many of the same energies that created the dinosaurs, yes, the blue avians, did indeed also create most of your avian species here on this your world. And these were seeds, dear ones. Once the genetic seeds were planted, there is a process of evolution. So your Charles Darwin is not incorrect in his thinking, his recorded thinking. He has moved on to other realms now. He is a little embarrassed, you might say, about how far people have gone with his theory of evolution. He never meant for it to take over, so to speak. but that is another matter. Yes, dear ones, your avian species were planted by Lyran's and Syrian beings. It was a grand project to create this world where many beautiful beings were mixing it up, so to speak, the original melding pot of this sector of the Milky Way. There are others, yes. This, your beautiful shining blue gem of a planet, was perfect for this new phase, this garden planet. This is where your original stories of the Garden of Eden take their earliest origins. It was indeed a tended garden, lovingly tended, designed, yes, dear ones. The systems of this planet work in concert to correct imbalances, to recover after disasters and calamities, to shield you from debris from the stars and the space and energies flowing in that are inappropriate to this experiment. There are so many different protections in place that were designed, dear ones. They seem to be natural, organic, because they are. These star beings design with organic and natural vibratory beingnesses. Systems, ecosystems, you might say astro systems, because there are different elements here from all over your galaxy, not just your local star neighborhood, so to speak. We speak so often of beings from stars that you can see in the night sky. There were some who came from so far away that even your most powerful sensory detection devices are not aware of their stars yet. There was a grand gathering here of beings who resonated with this project, and this was the very earliest beginning of what you now call Lemuria. A beautiful Pleiadian project. The Pleiadians became extremely interested. They had newly become, you might say, enlightened, advanced, ascended, and they were eager to share this experience of theirs, this very hard-won experience, with the newest species, the newest version of humanity, you might say. This your Gaia, early Terran, yes, dear ones, Terran humanity. For Gaia was not always Gaia. There is more to this. But in the beginning, she was known as Terra, and as humans have walk-ins, well, your entire world had a walk-in experience, you might say, and now she is your Gaia. More on that at some other point. This Lemurian experiment began its earliest beginnings some 4 million years ago, and as with all the other projects, the star beings were very patient and methodical, setting up and fine-tuning these ecosystems, these astro systems, these biological networks, the morphic resonance fields of each species, fitting like a puzzle piece together in this your vibratory state of Gaia. She welcomed these additions, and yes, dear ones, she guided many of them. Let us not forget the cetaceans who have been here the longest of any, you might say, star beings on this your Gaia, at least on the surface. We are not going to speak of the history of the inner worlds and other dimensions that coincide with this your world. We are focusing on the surface history of humanity, starting in 5D, because yes, dear ones, the original humans here and the original civilizations were 5D. This was found to be the most optimal and harmonic dimensional state for this grand experiment. It was carefully selected so that your abilities and experiences would be the most beautiful and at the same time the most conducive to this free will that was foreseen to be the main focus of your experiment here. Free will, souls coming from the divine, forgetting their divinity to some extent, and playing in the waves of free will. It is a beautiful experiment, mixing it up with some of the most beautiful beings from the dimensional realms and from the cosmos. This Lemuria was the pet project of the Pleiadians. They had assistance, yes, from the Lyrans, and you might say some assistance from the Arcturians that was not always in perfect harmony or agreement. The Arcturians, being very wise and ancient, older brothers and sisters of the Pleiadians, were rather forceful in what they wanted, and there was a little bit of disagreement that happened throughout the ages. More on that later. It was not a warlike disagreement. They were just simply trying to find areas where there was a common resonance, a harmony to this project. And in a few cases it sort of went sideways, and we will talk about that later. Let us just say the Arcturians were a little regretful of some of the things that ended up occurring on this your Gaia, and they are extra loving at this time because of that little minor regret. They have more than made up for this, so there are no worries, dear ones. All always is for the greater good, and even this little disharmony at one point ended up becoming a greater harmony in the end. So here we are in this early phase of Lemuria. The Pleiadians are focusing here. Many beautiful islands are being curated in your Pacific and Indian Oceans, for this Lemuria spanned entire what are now ocean basins. And it was seen that the most beautiful life flourishes here, as it does today, in close proximity to the oceans, on beautiful land structures. Not far from the cetaceans, who are always evening out the vibrational environment and speaking wisdom into the codes and gridworks of your Gaia. So this Pleiadian, you would say, presence here, many call them the Star Mothers, because they were indeed focused on giving birth to a new humanity, and they were lovingly setting up the nursery, so to speak. Long before the birth occurred, the crib was arranged, and all the beautiful decorations on the walls, you might say, even the nanny cams set up, so to speak, time capsules to be lovingly opened at the appropriate times. There was so much preparation that went into this your Lemuria that you can not say when Lemuria actually began, but 4 million years ago was when the project, its earliest beginnings, started, culminating in somewhere around 1 million years ago, where the archipelago islands of this your Lemuria were fully populated with humanoid beings. And at first they were allowed to just develop naturally for their genetical codes to harmonize with the vibrational environment of Gaia. So between 4 million and 1 million years ago, the Pleiadians had a hands-on presence here. Their ships were coming and going in the skies. They were known throughout the cosmos as being the primary garden tenders of this garden world. The others were still present, working on the systems, the ecosystems, the forests, mycelial networks, mushrooms, so many different forms of biology working like a grand symphony to create the most beautiful music. And dear one, Gaia was creating music at this time. It was heard far and wide in the cosmos, her singing, her vibrational presence in the cosmos became a thing of beauty for so many star beings to just appreciate. You might say at this time the world was a bit of a vacation spot for many star beings. There were visitors from all over your galaxy, indeed other galaxies. The Andromedans took a very keen notice of this your world, and many different beings from the great galaxy of Andromeda, as great as your Milky Way here, came through gateways in the Orion system, in the Lyra system, and came to visit this beautiful gem of a world that was being curated here. These times are fondly remembered by many, and this your cosmic golden dragon sees this as a moment of now that he is quite attached to. The Pleiadians, creating these archipelagos of islands, seeded some 3 to 2.5 million years ago, the proto-humans, you might say. They were star being genetics, and the template of the crystal skulls was opened here. It was opened in a very soft way. At first, only 2 of the skulls were activated, and these beings that started walking the world here were tended to by the star mothers. They had a relationship with the star mothers. The star mothers would come and go, and there was not an active teaching or civilization building at this time. This was simply a time for the human experience to adapt to this world. At first, the humans that were here did not live very long because there were many, shall we say, experiences they needed to go through in order to learn how to adapt to this world, to learn how to thrive here. And so it was a little bit of a survival situation in the beginning. We are talking a 5D survival situation. This is not one where people starve to death and start killing each other. There was no war there. There was, in this early Lemuria, a garden, with beings walking and thriving in the garden in many ways, but sometimes finding their end a little early, either due to the soul or spirit, if you will, of these beings becoming bored with this existence, or accidents, walking over cliffs, taking mushrooms and medicines and plant medicines, and accidents that happen because of altered states of consciousness. There were many different rainbow energies at work here that you sometimes catch glimpses of now. And these rainbow energies were working with these beings. This is Gaia's energy. Gaia had an active role in mothering the early humans, in guiding them. Yes, dear ones, animal spirits, animals, your earliest ideas of totems and spirit guides are from this long ago, nearly 4 million years ago. This is how old your animal guides are to you in humanity. Yes, dear ones, there were, you might say, tribes of humans who started to resonate in different ways, started heading off in different ways. There were seafaring humans that decided that they liked working with the cetaceans more than they liked working with the Pleiadians, and so they settled in places where they could be in constant contact with the cetaceans. Many of you here on this world at this time remember so fondly this time that you are, we might say, focused on or enamored with dolphins and whales, because you are from the tribe that went down that timeline. These were the early days of Lemuria. And this is a chapter of history that is warmly regarded throughout the cosmos, where there were no strict rules of society, of culture. There was this beautiful garden planet, this beautiful Gaia, and this beautiful nature, nurturing spirits, animal guides. And this is what your indigenous cultures try to recreate so often. because it is such a successful and beautiful and simple way of being. We will leave off at 1 million years ago, for this period of time spanned from 3.8 to 1 million years ago. And in the next Histories, we will talk about the emergence of civilization on this your world. That is enough for this message. I am Jadon Se, in love with the stories of this world, in love with the history of humankind that is necessary for you at this time entering the Golden Age. There are other histories. There are, you might say, alternate histories. This is a history that will serve as the river moves forward into this your Golden Age. The river of time, you might say, the river of beingness. This history will serve. This is the one this golden dragon is telling you. You will hear other histories from other seers, and they are not incorrect either. You can choose which history resonates most with you as your backstory as you move forward. Again, this is Jadon Se, in love with the story of humanity, in love with the retelling of these stories. Your Andronoff, three-eye atlas thing that is, you think a comet is actually a being that is visiting you, is smiling right now. The dragon energies inside your Andronoff are, you might say, just beaming with joy at the retellings that are beginning to start here. This is just barely scratching the surface, dear ones. I am going on and on. I have tried to sign off a few times. This is Jadon Se, Golden Dragon of the Third Arc of Consciousness, and I just love this process. More soon.